Welcome to the Inner Blueprint Podcast. I'm Sean Foyer, the Universal Mindset Disruptor. With over 20 years of turning blueprints into thriving home improvement businesses, I've learned that the strongest foundations start in your mind. Whether you're building a business or your own success, we're here to reshape how you think and face daily life and always remind you to enjoy the ride. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Inner Blueprint, the podcast for the home improvement industry and anybody and everybody that's looking to think better thoughts and get better results in their life. I am your co-host, Sean Foyer, along here with...
your co-host, Caitlin Foyer.
Yes, the beautiful, amazing, radiant, powerful Miss Caitlin. And we are here today with another episode. As always, our intent is to leave you with some good information, hopefully some inspiration. And then today we've got really, and I feel like I say this quite often, but we have so many special guests. So we're going to call this gentleman a special guest. I believe I first met him at a contractor event somewhere in the 2010s. I'd been a member of the Certified Contractors Network for a while. He came to an event in Salt Lake City. It was a really nice resort. We'll let him talk about that a little bit. He's like, shit, if they're going to have events here, I'm going to join this organization now. But we crossed paths as business owners. I then went to work for Certified Contractors as a coach, and we had a relationship coach to client. And then in the last few years, he's become a client of mine in Mindset. This gentleman is a U.S. Army veteran, has more than 20 years of experience running and owning a very successful home exteriors organization. Him and his partner have ran this organization together since 2011 after merging their companies. When asked what he likes about working with his staff at his company, he believes that their tagline says it all. And I might give some of it away. Life happens out back. It's a great feeling to see our customers create an oasis of enjoyment in their backyard, a gathering place of community for their friends and family. And anyone who's ever heard me talk about the spirit of the home improvement business, that is definitely part of it. In his spare time, this gentleman and his beautiful wife have 5 children and 2 grandchildren, and they enjoy spending time with their family, traveling, and serving in their faith and community. And I will say, Miss Caitlin, what do you have to say about this guest? I know he's one of your favorite people that is part of our community.
I mean, this guest has big deck energy, so I'm really excited to talk to him.
That's right. Yes, and he happens to be a twin of mine. We share the same birthday. Yes, he is a client and a friend. Let's welcome to Inner Blueprint, Mr. John Gwaltney of Outback Deck. What's up, John?
Like you said, our birthday twins. So we always send each other exchanges on May 20th. Great day. That's right.
Yes, a good day to be born, right? We both think so.
The greats are born on that day, in my opinion. The greats.
And I have to in the intro, I didn't name your partner. So when he's listening, and Brian, I didn't forget you. Mr. Brian Miller, John's partner at Outback, they've together built a really beautiful company, organization. And obviously today we're going to focus a lot on you, John,
Absolutely.
But definitely wanted to give Brian props because you guys have done a lot of good things together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So should we go back in time? Let's talk about the first CCN event, because that is one of the things that brought us together, was that organization and the networking and information they provide. So tell us about your first event, what you went there looking for and what you found.
Well, I started my business in 2004, and like many contractors, I didn't necessarily have the run a business background, and I did not come from construction, so I did have some business understanding. But started that company and had moderate success, honestly. Did pretty good, built a little small team. We were clipping along pretty well. And then 2008 and 9 hit, right? And the slaughter, as we call it, happened. I was really blessed because I didn't carry any debt. And so unlike a lot of my friends whose stuff got called, Yeah. So I was able to just sort of plug through and make it job over job for, a little bit of time. And I began looking for, I just kept thinking, there's got to be a better way. Like this is too hard. I was doing the classic estimates till 2 a.m. or going to sleep at 8 o'clock and getting up at 2 a.m. to do estimates, and then running jobs during the day and, all those things, right, that you have to do, and trying to be a dad and all those things that are just tough. And so I started asking around, and a friend I had met said, "Have you ever considered Certified Contractors Network?" Didn't know who they were. So I think right up your alley. It's a niche for home improvement. They have all the systems in place. You should really go check them out. And so I got online, and like that day, I sent something in, and Gail called me. Gail she ran and owned CCN at the time. That's right. And she said, you should come out. This is maybe April. And she said, we're having something next month. You should come to Utah in Salt Lake City, which was great. And my very first event was at the St. Regis, Salt Lake City. I think I paid $199 a night or something, right? Oh my gosh. I had a butler. Like, what was that, And I thought, well, I'm doing this, but it was great because what CCN did for me, I always share this. It's not the greatest analogy, but if you've ever had little kids and you're a working dad, you come home and your wife who was home has got your 3 and 4 year old, and she just says, "Hey, could you just help clean up? Could you go clean up their room?" I'd go in the room and I'd put everything away, and it would sort of be clean. And then my wife would come in and goes, "Oh, actually," and she would say, "This goes here, this goes here, this goes here." And that's sort of what Certified Contractors did for me. It's like I had all the tools and they were just sort of out of order. And it's like, hey, you put this here, you put this here, you put this here. And all of a sudden, boom, it started coming together, and came together pretty quick. So it was really, it's been a great partnership for us in CCN. I'm still a member. I love it. I encourage people to lean in and learn.
Yeah. Well, we just got back from their winter conference. We were both there attending it. Really good event, great speakers. It's funny too, and this is more to the business planning process, but it's something I want to plug when we talk about it, because whether you do it with CCN, there's some other organizations that do some annual, focus on your numbers, but kind of like that analogy you just gave, we don't know where things go. And for me, when I joined CCN, I joined in 2004, and one of the first things I attended was the business planning boot camp. And I've used this analogy for people that go through it after. I had all the pieces of the puzzle. I didn't know what the puzzle looked like, right? And for me, best practices, a business plan, connect the dots systems, it's literally the picture you can look at. And it might take you years to get the pieces in the right place, but for me, that's what it was like in my business. And I think for you, John, and I've watched you do a masterful job, especially in the last couple of years, of those few missing pieces, right? We have the picture, this is what we want, this is what it should look like. And as we get to the end, sometimes we're missing a few pieces, and I've seen you very powerfully find and implement those. So hats off to you. And
yeah, well, I know we'll probably talk about it, but I'll tell you your program is a piece of the puzzle, right? That I was missing, and putting that piece in fits something that you didn't even know you missed, right? You didn't even know you had a piece of puzzle laying out there, right? You just didn't know, and then all of a sudden you're like, man, if I would have known this 10 years ago. Right.
Yeah. Well, and for me, I mean, I found my mindset because I had a missing piece. I didn't know it, and my missing piece became a huge missing piece that was causing ripple effects in every area of my life. And, finding Bob Proctor and the mindset program that I've now, integrated and implemented into my inner blueprint. And we will talk more about that because, for years you had best practices, right? Yeah. And you were doing them to the best of your ability. As are most. And if you're listening to this right now, if you feel like you've got good people on your team, you've got good processes in place, and for some reason you're not getting the results, then we'll talk more about that. It's probably you. There's probably something in your mind that you're not consciously aware of that's holding you back. And it's been really fun because, as so many amazing businessmen like John I start working with, when he first started with me in mindset, and John, I don't think we talked about this, I didn't know what value I was going to add because I do know you to be somebody that has high level mindset. You're an implementer. You take good information, you implement it in your personal life. You're fit. You always have a focus and we can talk too about marriages because besides being birthday twins, we're also second powerful, amazing relationship twins that have both attracted these amazing women into our life. And that was a journey. And for you, we went through some of that simultaneously, and I feel like you were a mentor to me because I remember, I don't know if you remember being at dinner literally pretty much crying, you and Miller saying,
That's right.
Sean, it's going to be okay. Like, you're going to find your next, you're going to find your new. But yeah, I didn't know what you were going to find. So maybe we can just talk on that. What have you found in mindset? Maybe let's go there first. What has been your biggest surprise in the last year with your new awareness of the mind and how it affects our lives?
Yeah, if I could, I'll share a little bit of history of that, because mindset coaching wasn't necessarily new, but it came from a brand which was faith, right? And my dad was a pastor. He was never the senior pastor. He wasn't the guy who got up and preached on Sundays, right? But he was, I went to seminary when I was 2 years old, is what I tell everybody, right? So for a long time. And I was part of churches that were positive, and God was doing good things for you. So that sort of basis and foundation of looking forward and realizing, God had good things for you and positive things, where that was always sort of instilled. So I was in a good spot. What happens though is real life jumps in, right? And you're going along, and you hit a stride that you didn't feel like really wasn't your issue to create, and then all of a sudden you're struggling with maybe a house that you can't afford any longer, right? And you go through a battle like that, or 2008 comes down, and I don't know, I don't have anything to do with the banking industry, and all of a sudden everything gets taken away from you, and you're like, man. And so one thing that built up inside me along the way was a little bit of a scarcity mindset, right? And Brian, my business partner, and I would both tell you that over the last 12 years of working together, 13 years of working together, one of the things we did was we cash flowed the business, right? We were going to make it. And so our motto was just one more job. If I need something, I'm just going to go sell one more job. That was just, we're going to go. But the other part, other side of that coin was we're going to save, right? We're going to put stuff away, which was something that was instilled in me as a kid. And so there was no crossover that wasn't the way you did it. What I learned in the past 2 years was that was actually becoming an inhibitor, right? I was not looking forward and looking to the future and thinking, okay, if I go and do these things, I'm going to become a more powerful leader. I was thinking differently about that. And I think for me personally, it probably started in 2017 when I went to a conference that someone challenged us to write, what would it look like if your company was worth $100 million? And we sat there for 3 hours, Brian and I, and we just wrote, what would it look like? Who knows? What we knew is we weren't going to build $100 million of the decks, because that wasn't that interesting, right? And so it was like, hey, maybe we'll acquire some companies. Maybe we'll have to write a piece of software. Maybe we'll franchise. Maybe we'll do something completely different. But it was that forward thinking, and that set a little bit of the seed. And when I got a hold of Inner Blueprint, what was really helpful was a very logical, hey, these are some steps every week, do the work, and then lay that on with what I think you bring to the table most of all, Sean, is the expression of that, right? How do you express that in words? How do you express it in feelings? How do you express it in who you are? Those two combinations, man, it really affected me in a very different, positive, but stretching way that I just look at it different now. I can spot it, right? Oh, yeah. So the scarcity, look at that. You can hear the way they're talking.
Yeah.
They're talking from a place of they're going to lose something, not gain something. So that's
Yes.
One I love, and listeners, hear this, because again, John made it through the Great Recession, which a lot of us, myself included, got tripped up, knocked down, beat up. And one reason was at some level a scarcity mindset. He didn't carry debt. He was minimizing, always preparing. And that's a great tool to get you to a certain point. And I definitely could have used more of that because I didn't have that. I got my ass kicked and I got thrown into scarcity by being in scarcity, right? When like you said, the banking industry starts calling notes on not only, I mean, I remember for me, John, I came into the office one day, was having issues on my mortgage of a new house I was building, and they were trying to call the note, raise the rate. The same day, American Express decided to take all these cards that we were using in multiple companies and go from unlimited credit lines or 50 to 100 to nothing. And I did nothing to cause that, but now my cash flow immediately went from pretty good from month to month to all of a sudden horrible. But it is interesting because for you now, that was awesome then, but as you grow now, it starts to get in the way, right? Because to grow your business and do some of the things, you have to take on some debt from time to time. You have to invest when you're feeling a little bit nervous. So what is your mindset on money? And again, I love that you brought up the faith because you and I talk a lot about that. I'm the mindset guy that brings a little spirit, but you're the spirit guy that wanted to add a little mindset. But for some of us, our thoughts about money and, the root of it possibly being evil, or, you should just accept what you have.
Be happy with what you have.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, don't want for too much.
And you've had some of that too, and with your upbringing,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, John, I would love to hear your take on this. I mean, I look at you as like, you're so wise and you have so much experience and you love to share your knowledge with people. And so I actually, this is so interesting to me. I didn't ever realize you had scarcity mindset at any level. So this is really eye-opening to me.
I would say, the way I was raised and taught, and what I'm going to share next is not to say that this is incorrect or not. It's just, it builds a paradigm, right? So what we talk about, there's a teaching that occurs, and then something builds, and you sort of end up in this believing something or thinking something that maybe isn't entirely accurate. The classic, we're going to give you a paycheck, and you're going to give 10%. We're going to give you a paycheck, and we're going to give 10%, right? Maybe a different mindset was, I'm going to give you 90, right? And you just managed to less 10 with at least 10%. So just a little bit of language difference there, right? Hey, do I have it? But as I started thinking through this and working through it, what I think I realized is, for me personally, in faith, is God's got a great big vision for my life. And he said to me personally, I am abundance, and I'm just going to keep giving you abundance if you'll just keep coming back and asking. Yes. And I think we get a little bit worried about words, and sometimes we get a little bit stuck in story, and we think, he does say ask and you shall receive. And at the same time, he says manage your stuff really well, right? You sort of live in this.
Yes.
But he's the picture that comes to my mind all the time is if he has the big pile of gold, and you walk up with your little shovel and pail, and he's like, "Go ahead," and you walk in and you put a little bit in, and you sort of go out of the room a little sheepishly, like, "Okay, right? Yeah, is this okay, or is it gonna tell me to stop? And
is this okay?
And then,
is this okay?"
He says, come back when that's empty, and you're like, okay, and then you go and you get a little bit more, and he's like, and then he finally looks at you and he says, "When are you gonna bring a wheelbarrow?" And I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna go get a wheelbarrow, right? And then you do that a couple times, and it's like, if you want to bring a dump truck, you could do that too. And you're like, okay, and then you go and you sort of get a dump truck, because you just keep seeing that the more he entrusts you with it, and the more care, blessing you are, then it gives. And Sean, part of my worthy goal is I want to give $1 million away in a year, because for me, it just I have this belief that if I start with giving mindset, hey, I'm gonna give, I just believe it's coming. I see it. I feel that experience. Brian too. We both talk about it all the time. It's almost, we can't give away enough. It's not to gain, I guess I would say. Yeah. It's just this law that occurs in sort of the reaping and sowing, and we see it.
Well, yeah. And so many religions have tithing in them, right? And in our program on the mindset and the science side, we talk about the impression of increase or the law of compensation, which states give it away, right? And give it away without wanting, without asking, without expectation. and you're a living example of this. And Kayla and I have become that as well. The more we give,
Yeah.
the better we get.
Always.
And I love too, because for me, when I give, I receive
yeah.
immediately. And as you know, John, it feels good to give. You know what I mean? When you give something away and you change somebody's day,
the best
or sometimes you
feeling.
change somebody's life, I mean, you already get that. Like, what else do you need? And then when you just give thanks for that feeling, we do. We see more and more come down the line. And I do want to clarify too, because I know you, like me, I don't want to say I was ever taught anything wrong, right? Like, I had church leaders that loved me and cared about me, and they taught me a good message. I think sometimes we as receivers might not even receive it how it's intended, or some part of it, right? Because I did receive things about money that I know the people that told me about it wanted me to be a good steward of my money, but for some reason it created some weird scarcity or some weird things in me that I can't blame the messenger, right? We each as students perceive messages differently.
Well, absolutely. I think, that's the work, right? When we say, hey, what's the work? The work in Inner Blueprint is journaling, writing, and figuring out, hey, why do I think that? Why is that belief there? And sometimes what you discover is, that belief came because my dad lost his job when I was 7 years old, and we went from this to this, this big house to this small house, or we went from 2 cars to 1 car or no car. And I just remember how that felt. And, we talk about it, Sean, it's the event, right? An event comes and you just think, I don't ever want that to happen again. And here you are 30 years later, 40 years later, and you're still living in a little bit of that experience, right? And you've not allowed yourself, and you didn't even know that's really the thing. You didn't know, because
Yeah.
your subconscious is what's doing that little speaking part to you, right?
Yeah, and we talk about it's like a submarine. It's below the conscious awareness, and so we don't realize it's something, and it's from our Creator trying to keep us efficient and safe. And it goes back to those stories that don't apply, especially to current day. This version of John Gwaltney that we're talking to, he's got so much wisdom, so much experience, and can take those early lessons. Be aware of what was good. Let's use those. Be aware of what you can change and make work better for you, and implement those at an even higher level. And again, I mean, let's just talk about how was last year for you guys? In the business personally, did you have a good year in 24?
Yeah, best year ever. Best year top line, best year bottom line, and I'll add this: best year of not having to be around the business. Right?
There it is.
Like, well, how? I mean, you, and we can plug. I mean, Maui Mastermind's a great organization, certified contractor. You've been part of these, and that's part of their work is to get you there, and they helped you. I'd say 90% of the way there, but the mindset kind of helped push it over, because best year, more time away. That's exactly what you've been trying to build for a very long time, and I love that you were able to accomplish it last year.
Yeah, and for us, time is valuable for Brian and I. We a long time ago made a decision that sort of the most important thing was being able to peel away and be with our family and live real time, because we didn't. When you're working every day and doing estimates every night, that kind of thing, you just give away your life. And we really didn't want to do that. So we set out to say, hey, a successful year for us was, having a little more than paying the bills, right? We had big goals from a wealth standpoint, but we also had big goals from how much time we could give and not give, and that was helpful over the time in organizations. And then the mindset work comes along, and I think what changes is, can I do it? The question, can I do it, to I'm going to do it. I deserve it, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know I think you've heard me say this, but I always say, in the physical world, we say we're going to try to do something, or even that we're in the process. And for me, I pull that back to the mindset and say, okay, John, are you trying? Are you doing? Or is it done? And you can make it done in your mind with that decision, with that belief. And that's what we help you with. And what happens when you say it's done in your mind, John? Then what happens in the physical? Does it come?
It comes. You actually begin walking in the presence of that, I guess is the way I would say. And yeah. I was not familiar with classic I am statements, right? Affirmations. I grew up in faith, and so there was affirmations, but not in the context of the way Inner Blueprint puts it together. And one of the things I began writing, because I recognized the paradigm that was in me, was I'm a man who takes off 16 weeks a year. I'm a husband who spends time with his wife. You know, I am a father who has a vacation every year completely paid for his family. I wanted some things that were really valuable to me because I had never done those things. And then I started writing them. And you know what happens? You start challenging yourself. Well, why wouldn't I rent the beach house and have everybody come? When I grew up, everybody had to split costs. Right? That's the way we vacation.
Right.
We would go with places of the family. Why did I have to do that? Why don't I bless everybody and everybody get together and have a good time and not worry about it? Right?
And it's so true because, I mean, it's simple with the words, right? A lot of people ask, well, why would you do that? Or why do you feel like you need that? Well, why wouldn't I? You know, and that's what I love to see. And, you know, a lot of people go, well, like, who am I to do that? Well, who are you not to do that?
Right.
And you've had like that major shift of, you know, why not instead of why, and not who am I to, but who am I not to? Who am I to say that I don't deserve this and that I shouldn't be doing these things?
Well, it's interesting. And John, I know this type of affirmation was new to you, but we deal, and we have people in our powerful group that are new to it, and they don't understand that affirmation at all, let alone the powerful ones that we create. But as Caitlin just said, like even when I met you, Caitlin, were you negatively affirming yourself automatically in certain areas?
Oh yeah, I still do, and it's something I work so hard to positively affirm myself every single day, multiple times a day to do.
Yeah, and so listener takeaway here, think about your thoughts over the next few days and pay attention to how many negative, self-deprecating thoughts you might have about why you shouldn't, why you couldn't. Those are affirmations that are running inside of you all the time. And what John's talking about is for him, he looked on the outside at some results that he wanted more of, and he started saying them to himself in a powerful I am statement like they were already done. And within a very short time, you know, less than a year, they started to become like automatic because that's what his mind began to believe.
Well,
right?
and it's so funny because you said those affirmations, like I am someone that has, you know, my vacation paid for every year for my family. And every affirmation you said just barely to us, I was like, yes, absolutely. 100% you are. Yes, yes, yes. So it's so funny because a lot of people think it's so hard for you to say this to yourself about yourself, but you say this about yourself and someone else hears you. They're not like, you're crazy. They're like, yeah, that's exactly who you are, John. Like, of course.
Yeah. Well, and that's what's funny is, again, John, you know this, we're so hard on ourselves, right? Like we will have trouble saying something to ourselves that we would say to our best friend, that we say to our beautiful wife, but we wouldn't say it to ourselves. And when we say it out loud, and especially in our groups, everybody agrees with us already. Oh yeah, that's you. Oh yeah, you can do that. And I mean, to me, that's been a fun, I don't know how that's been for you, but that's been really fun for me as a facilitator sometimes, is to just hear somebody feel like they're stepping on a ledge saying something and then watch them get like love bombed by a whole group of, oh hell yeah, that is absolutely yours. That is absolutely you. Right?
That is in our group, particularly the Powerful Men's group and the mastermind I'm in. I guess what I'd want the hearers to say, this isn't a group of guys who, you know, we sit around and just say encouraging words to each other. There's if anything, there's a high level of sarcasm and
yeah, something different.
You know, fun that takes place, but we're quick to challenge each other on our negative thoughts, right? Very quick. And the reason we're quick to do that is because it takes just the littlest seed to grow. And once it starts growing and you get down the road, you don't even know it. And that's what I have to be super careful of is even my wife, Heidi, who is one of the most positive people I know, she'll say, is that true? You know, is that true? Because she's seen me do the work, right? And we'll be talking about something and she'll say, She'll challenge my maybe negative aspect or something, or maybe what I feel hopeless about, right? Sometimes you're like, oh man, this is just never going to get any better. It's always this, you know, is that true? And I think you have to keep trying to figure that out, because if you get stuck in that cycle, right? What the mastermind group, what this group does is it helps pull me out pretty quickly. And honestly, in about a 60-minute call every week, right? So.
Yes, yes. And real quick, John, I actually had some questions come up, so I'm going to address it for listeners right now. And you can actually help me because you've been part. But when we say, and if you listen to Caitlin and I and our guests, you hear us talk about mastermind all the time. And honestly, I mean, I've been part in the past of a lot of different groups. Some of them called themselves mastermind, but I don't think anybody does it specifically exactly the way that we do in our groups at SFC. And so I just want to give a definition. And John knows because he's participated, and I'll have him give some feedback because I know he's in different groups and there are things that he likes about each one, but I know there's some things about ours that are a little bit different. And we pull our definition, the way we facilitate it, really from Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And the definition he used that I've adopted is 2 or more people coming together with common purpose and common goal. Now, that can be a challenge when you get a people like we have, almost 40 business owners from all the United States and Canada, different areas, different products. How do we create commonality? And that's where we developed in our program the power trifecta. Better finances, better health and wellness, both mental and physical, and better relationship with self, because every relationship's a mirror. And so John and every other men in our men's group, and Caitlin and every other women in our women's group, and we have the in-home sales and the leaders group, they all get to decide what they want. They get to decide what they believe. They get to decide, but we all come together in the energy of, which is the mastermind, one powerful mind created by all of us coming together, better finances, better health and wellness, and better relationship. And that's whenever you hear John on the rest of this episode, or me or Caitlin talk about a group, a mastermind, that's what we're talking about. More of us trying to strive for better in at least those 3 areas. And then like John, he has a lot more than 3 areas he's working on, and he's getting better in all of them, but the focus initially is on those 3 areas. And John, how does that differ? Because you've been part of a lot of groups. What do you see different sometimes in our group, besides just the fact that we are all working on mindset and we have that level of awareness?
I think a lot of people enter the group with a little bit of hesitancy, right? But most of us especially specifically the ones who are business owners, we're a little bit on an island ourselves. And many of us are a little bit tired of the way it's going. And so we know, listen, I can blame an employee for something. I can say I'm too busy. I can do all these things. But when I'm sitting there looking in the mirror and I'm, it's 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm getting up and you go, I really need this to be different. I'm really ready for it to be different. And you have a good long look at yourself and you have to say, I need to change. Something's got to change. And as we all know, it really has to start with us. And so the guys come in, maybe a little bit timid, and they listen for a little while. Some guys get right in there, get doing the work, but most guys are listening and watching. I think what they hear in this group particularly, different from any other group that I'm in, is celebrating the big wins, right? In a very open and easy way. Here, you're an owner. You don't get to celebrate a lot with your employees, right? In the way that you feel with big wins, you get a place to celebrate. But more to that is a little bit of vulnerability because sometimes you can share, hey, these are my dreams, hopes, and aspirations, and they can be wild, like in a really great way, right? Someone who doesn't have the context of business ownership or entrepreneurship will sometimes just not be able to be an encouragement at that time. Where in this group, they're like, why aren't you going to go do that? Why isn't that your worthy goal? They're pushing you. Hey, let's go. You should do that. What are the steps you're taking to do it? Hey, remember last call when you said something like this? That's the pushing. And there's a chisel part, right? We get a chance to look at each other's finances. We get to have some real conversations about, hey, you can be better there, by the way, right? There is some falling short that you should be held accountable to.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And I think we do in our groups too, provide with accountability buddies, with Kayla and I as facilitators. That's the other thing. Most owners, especially in the owners group, you're the boss. You can change rules. You can bullshit your employees. Sometimes you can BS your wife when you want to, right? I mean, who is holding you accountable? And with the mastermind principle and the way we run it, there's extreme accountability to be on the call, to do the work, to do what you say you're going to do. What about one other thing, John? And I do love this, and I think I've been known one to have those sweaty eyes sometimes, right? But to me, I've labeled it as my power of vulnerability. But do we share some challenges and losses? Have you heard some pretty like surprising, amazing things that gentlemen have shared? That's a new level of vulnerability in a group like this, as far as being part of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, on the personal level, we've heard some real setbacks that people have gone through, both in their family. We've had some loss that some folks have shared with, both personally and family, but also financially. Things happen in life, and they're difficult. Listen, it's been the last 4 years since COVID started. It's been this roller coaster of a ride. Sometimes you're winning, like, my gosh, I can't believe, and then other times you're like, what is happening right now? So to be able to share any of those is absolutely remarkable. What's really interesting is some of the guys that are in our group I've known for more than 10 years. If you had told me they would have gotten sweaty eyes, not one-on-one would be one thing, but actually in the group and be vulnerable enough to just say, I'm struggling. I need some, can I just share with you? And then hear the other guys say both encouraging things, but very direct things. Here's some practical steps you should take. Here's what you should do next. I mean, there's just not many groups like it. Yeah.
Oh, and I love this. And my badge of honor I now wear, and in one of our small groups, I was getting, like I do, a little emotional, a little maybe out there with some of my mindset stuff. And I apologized, saying I think I was getting a little woo and maybe a little cheesy. And our friend Word said, John, he said, I just want you to know, you are out there, and sometimes you're cheesy as fuck. But I love you, and that's why I'm here. And I hear that because, as me sharing vulnerably, like in middle school and high school, when I would get upset, I would cry. I don't know where it comes from. I would get so mad that I wouldn't get angry. I would literally get emotion. And I had to go through my challenges, and my work in Inner Blueprint is owning that as a man and saying, dude, you cry sometimes. And thank God. And John knows our good friend and both of our mentor, Charlie Gandell, who he occasionally gets sweaty eyed. And I remember the first time, it was like 04, 05. He's running a business planning, and the guy's at the front of the room crying. And I'm the youngest guy at the time in the room, and I'm looking around going, oh my gosh, it's okay to do this? Like, look at this man. And watching him like get a, standing applause, and people in a small group standing up and saying thank you. And I do, because I think that is one of my gifts. I give people permission in our groups to do that. And especially in the men's group. The women's group, they just make me cry. We can talk about that another. I don't know why. I just cry in front of them all the time because they're so open to it. But in the men's group, it's really cool to create a space where you can share some emotion and then as John has described, be supported. I'm glad you like that too, John, because that, as you know, is one of my favorite jams about our groups is that just that vulnerability. It's
we're all at different stages at different periods of in our life, right? Some guys are single, right, and they're working hard. They have time is on their side.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to go home necessarily to feed the family. But you know what? They have some loneliness things that jump up pretty quickly, right? Right, and be a trap. And you got other guys who, full families, 4 or 5 kids, coaching games, trying to run a company, and employee steals from them. What do you do, right? You got to stop everything and go and deal with it. I mean, these are real life problems, big problems, right? Stuff that just doesn't go away. And in our group, we keep coming back to, okay, so what's your mindset on right now, right? What's your mindset on right now, right? You have the skill and the knowledge and the experience. That's not in question. That's why who you are and what you do. But what's your mindset on today? And what are you going to do when you get off the call? What are you going to do tomorrow morning when you wake up and walk in the office? What are you going to do this weekend? And not escapism. You're going to put some work in, and you're going to do your affirmations. You're going to write your gratitudes, right? You're going to write your worthy goal, even though you can't see it today. You're going to do it because writing removes doubt, as our friend Patrick talks about all the time.
Yes.
All the time.
Yeah, and we probably should, if anyone's listening and you're considering reaching out to us, just know you get all of us amazing men, but there's a gentleman by the name of Pat Reddyoff that at some point you will get on a phone call and he will get on your ass to be writing your affirmations, writing your gratitudes, and really doing the work. And you get access to so many amazing men. Caitlin, what's your perspective on, especially the men's group, and what you see
So I get to sit in the lucky seat where I get to be in all the groups, right? And so my favorite thing is the men's group. How you guys are all there's that level of sarcasm like we talked about, but it's all in good humor because there's no ego involved, right? So I mean, you guys can joke about things, but then when you need to hit it right on the head, you do, or when you need to be a little more graceful with each other and allow for those really vulnerable moments, or someone's really struggling, you're not just like, don't be a pussy. You guys are like, hey, let's talk about this. Like, let's, you know what I mean? Like, what's going on? Like, could it be because you think this? And so it's rare to find a bunch of men who aren't ego-based, who genuinely want everyone in that group to win, where it's not a competition mindset, it's a collaboration mindset, which is so high level. And it's so rare, especially in the contracting world. Honestly, I mean, contractors think like big, strong, huge contractors, but we make big, strong contractors cry. And you allow a space for them to do that, John. And you are such a leader in so many of the groups too, not just in Lunaris, but in the owners group. So many men look up to you because you've always been a very vulnerable, loving person.
And what happens,
the world needs more of that for men, which I love.
It mentally on the front end doesn't make sense, but the more you share, the more vulnerable you are, the more confident you become, right? Because now you have some tools to work with.
Yeah.
Now you push past the terror barrier to be able to express yourself some. Maybe you've never done it. Maybe you couldn't trust anyone or anything because those things would get ripped out. But now you can, so you build a little bit of confidence, and that confidence then starts to work its way into your life, into your relationship with your spouse or your kids. It begins to work its way into the relationship with your employees, with your customers. And confidence comes in all kinds of forms. Sometimes it's to speak louder at times, and sometimes it's to speak more softly at times. But it's having the confidence to be able to walk boldly in who you are, right? Both in your mind and your spirit, and be willing to take the advice of the other guys. I really love the group.
Well, and John, too, and this is, and for listeners, if you want to know more about this, go to Brene Brown, TED Talk, Netflix special, The Power of Vulnerability, and she talks about the open-hearted. But one of the coolest things for me about, and again, learning from being a crybaby basically to a connector is when we get emotional and we get vulnerable, not only do we get confidence, but we gain connection. Like we gain connection. We give the other person permission. If I show you, John, that I'm not in my ego and, hey, dude, I might teach this stuff, but I'm struggling right now. Could you as a friend help me? And at this last conference, you actually requested a one-on-one for me. Like that's what I love about this. I mean, you're a client. John pays me, you guys, and he reaches out to me ahead and says, could I have some of your time to help you? What? Like, where do you get these kind of men? Well, you join the Inner Blueprint. That's how you get these kind of men. But, that connection, and I think you will see, you've known a lot of these guys for 10 years. Are you connected to them differently? I'm not even going to say better. Differently through our groups because of that vulnerability that we create.
Of course. And you get to know somebody that, honestly, probably a little superficial before the group, right? You knew him through numbers and how'd you do last year, right? How's your sales going right now, right? Maybe you talked about a problem or something that they had occasionally, but you didn't really know what was really going on. You didn't maybe know their history. We come from all kinds of backgrounds. I'm super impressed. And the other thing is you don't know what someone's passionate about. We've got some guys who they want to be pilots, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't always come up in a conversation. We got people who want to.
DJs. Do you want to be DJs in clubs like Jesse wants to play music in a club at night?
You learn about those things.
Really,
and so
really
the next
is
time
cool.
you see that guy, you can really begin to understand. And we talked a lot about the vulnerability side of the group, but I will tell you also. The core of it is what do you set your mind on, right? And so that's somewhere in the conversation every week. You're going to ask a question. Where's your mindset on that? And what you're asking for is, hey, you're an owner. Most guys are pretty successful. What are you going to set it on now? Where are you thinking about? What are you raising your horizon to? Where are you going to put it for? Whether that's the relationship, whether that's your health, whether that's your wealth of income. Those things are really important. I love those three trifectas, as you call them, Sean, because they encompass about 75 to 80% of what you encounter in life. And if you do the work on those three things, right, and it's work, right, you can't shy and hide from it. If you do the work, then you'll wake up
Yes.
3 months, 6 months, a
No.
year from now, and you'll just be doing better.
Okay, John, you've talked a lot about how Inner Blueprint has helped you personally, how it's helped you in your business. How has it helped you as not just a husband, but a father and a grandfather too? Like, how has that helped you?
Yeah, the first thing it did is let me digest the word grandfather. So,
Do your grandkids call you?
Yeah.
What do
well,
what do your grandkids
you
call
get
you?
a
This is a
small window of
conversation
time to
John and I
maybe
have
suggest
often.
that what they should call
What do your
you,
grandkids
right?
call
And
you?
so that was my name was J Pop, right?
Yes.
So and that's what I have on a shirt or two.
Love
But
that.
I love
when I
it.
walk in,
J-pop.
Judah, who's just a little over two, just says pop, 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 pop. So we love it. And my wife is Honey, so when J Pop
Oh,
and Honey show up,
cute.
it's a great time. We love that. But yeah.
Oh.
But how does
Oh
it
my
how did it
gosh,
help
I
my
love
marriage?
this.
How did it help with my kids? With my kids, Heidi and I, we have 5 kids together. We've been married 4.5 years, and we both entered into a relationship from a fractured relationship, right? And so, as many people know, that can be a real struggle. We did some intentional stuff to make sure that we could work through that. We've had a marriage coach that we've seen almost monthly since before we were married, and we continue to do that. So we do have some things that we put in place. But what I recognized was what I was bringing to our marriage was a lot of pain and scar. Some paradigms that I had from my childhood, but also from my previous marriage, some hesitation and some fears. What the work did, and I always call it work because I need the discipline of it. I need to be disciplined to do it. If I don't do it, then I get off course. But when I do it, I did through the first couple of sessions of Inner Blueprint was, what do you want, right? Well, I want a really healthy marriage, right? Something that when we look at each other, we see the best in each other. When we look at each other, we speak highly of each other. We want our dreams and ambitions to grow together. I want her to do whatever she wants to do. She's a teacher. It's her last year teaching. I'm so excited, right? It's great. And I think she would say there was some nervousness to that, but we did the work together. We asked the questions. We leaned in. And then with my kids, blended family, I started writing an affirmation really early on about I want 5 kids who love one another unconditionally. I want 5 kids who love one another unconditionally. And I will tell you, these 5 cheer each other on like no one else. Our youngest, Hope, just got back from Uganda on a 9-day mission trip, and everyone supported her. Everyone asked her how she was doing. Everyone wanted to hear the stories. I just watched that. I'm amazed. We go on vacation together every year. Usually we go to the beach together. We all stay in the same house. Everyone gets along. I mean, I'm super blessed by that. But part of it is because I didn't live in the fear of what it couldn't be. I don't know. I can take all the stuff in that people say. I bet second marriages are tough. I bet your kids. I bet that's you could live in all of those things. I just chose not to. I'm not going to live there. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
That's
I
the
love
biggest
that.
win I've heard actually this whole episode, just so you know, is like the way you've applied it. And I mean, we came from fractured relationships before, right? And so we've walked kind of with you and Heidi on some of the same things that Kaylin and I deal with.
And you just gave me so many great ideas that I
Same.
can't wait to start implementing.
Yeah, I need
so.
some new affirmations, John. Thanks for giving the facilitator and coach some affirmations he's going to adopt almost immediately.
Yeah, and then one of the last things I want to click on, John, is you've talked about how it's helped you. You've talked about all that. You've talked about the level of vulnerability, and I think a level of your vulnerability is you've put other people within your organization into our program, because I think you realize, like, this has helped me so much, and I can't do this all alone. I need more people rowing the ship with me, or whatever it is, so we can have
Yeah, thanks for asking, and I can't endorse that enough
results.
too. That old question, like, how much do you invest in your employees, and what do you invest, all those things, right? I just pushed all that away. I really did. I set my mind on the fact that what was best for the organization was, what did each of these people need in their life? What was good? And we've had our two senior leaders, both in the program, both had nothing but, just absolute high praise for what it's done. And each are different people. Very different. They have different ambitions. They have they're one's male,
Very
one's
different
female,
people.
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
But also, as I was thinking about, I wonder what the program's going to do for them. What is the work going to do for them? I didn't try and figure it out. I just thought, how's it? And then I'm sort of, both of them have done more than a year in the program, and the questions they ask, but the conversations along the way that we've had, man, to have an employee really talk about some of their fears and feel like they can have that conversation with you, both maybe some personal stuff, but also some work stuff, right? We were at a conference and the guys talked about, wow people and how people. We have a decent amount of how people. How's that going to work? Hey, don't worry about that. Just what do you want, right? And let's go get it. And then we've put another group into the program. A couple of them just starting up, sales guys, production manager, and for us, I think it's all connected with where you're going and what you want to see. And I referenced that 2017 moment of writing, was a $100 million company look like? One of the things that it looked like was leaders rising up and running divisions of the company, right? Well, I need people who look at life with that it has greatness to it. Like, oh, of course I can see myself like that, right? Yes, I know where we need to go, and not with just bravado and ego, but yeah, I actually believe I can do this. I believe we can do it.
Yeah, the
Yes.
belief.
Yes. Well, and I love, and thank you for leaning into our program, and we love your people. Hopefully I'm okay to shout out, because Ken and Nicole are the leadership, and Ken's the how guy. He gets shit done by figuring out the how.
He's the how
and
guy.
he was so uncomfortable on his first call with me when I'm like, Ken, will you stop talking about the how? You don't get to talk about the how for a few weeks. And he's like, what are you tying my arms behind my back? Like, what are you talking about? And Nicole's in our powerful women's group, and this is the cool thing, and John gets it, is why he does it, but they're becoming better at their personal lives in their homes, showing up as mother and father, and we don't attract what we want, we attract who we are. Yeah. And I love that Outback has embraced the fact that we're helping their leaders, now their sales reps, become better human beings.
And the production manager, I'm so excited.
Yes, so
He's
excited.
Great. He is great.
Yes. It's so funny. I won't say his name, but he came up to me and said he wanted to be in. And I said, go ask for it. And he said, Sean, will you ask for it? And I said, I will if you ask and don't get it. And before I even talked to you, I got a text that he was in. So let's go back to asking you received. I literally said, just go ask for it. I bet if you ask for it, there's a possibility. And listeners, what do you want? What do you want? Just go ask for it. Ask your Heavenly Father, ask your spouse, ask your boss, ask yourself. We just got to ask for it and forget about the house. So I think we are getting closer to time,
Yep,
but I just want to say, I'm so excited, John, because anyone who's been in any group, in any organization, with John Gwaltney, we sit and we wait, and we're like, okay, when's John going to raise his
What's
hand?
he going to drop? What's he going to drop?
Yes, and I probably talked too much because I wanted you to talk this whole episode, but so far you've dropped some bombs. You had one more, did you? One more?
Nope,
to
that was
ask
it.
me?
I just want to talk about how the people were
Okay.
in, because then how that's affected. And it's
Well,
been
I want to
awesome.
wrap this all up in a nice gratitude sandwich. So, how important is gratitude to you, John, as I tell you how grateful we are to have you as part of our life, part of our organization? And now we have an episode of Inner Blueprint that's all John Gwaltney. But where does gratitude fit in for you as part of this mindset puzzle?
You know, the key that unlocks the door, right? That's what it is. It's I can
There
want
it is.
things, I can go after things, but most of all, I got to be grateful for things. And I heard a story one time. I'll say it briefly, but guy said, you know, you leave the house, you come home, you got flowers for your wife, and you knock on the door, and she answers the door, and you go, "Hey, here," and she's like, "Oh wow," and she goes, "Yeah, it's my duty," and you're like, Is that the way that works? No, what it is you come home, you go get those flowers, you knock on the door, and you surprise her, and she opens the door, and you say, "Hey, I just want to tell you, I thought about you today. You're amazing. You're beautiful. I couldn't ask for a greater wife. I'm so happy and pleased to come home to you. I'm grateful for who you are and what you mean in my life. I love you." Like, which one affects you more, right? Gratitude builds affection in your life. So, yeah.
Yes.
So you're
I
saying
am
you're going to go
certainly
home
going
with
home
flowers
tonight.
for your wife tonight as well, right? Good. I love it.
And it sounds like I need to find a way to get some
There it is.
before I get
There
home
it
tonight
is.
as well. Okay, I'm a very good student. If I'm not, God always teaches me a new lesson. So I'm learning them all. I'm just studying. Well, John, thank you for being a guest. Obviously, we're grateful for you.
So
and
grateful.
listeners, we're grateful for you. Thanks for listening. You know, it was cool for us. At this event, John, I had a lot of people that I had no idea were listening to our podcast come up and thank Kayla and I for the message. So thank you. Please keep listening. If you like it, please keep sharing. And Miss Caitlin, anything else?
I'm
That's
blessed.
it.
Thank you, guys.
I'm so excited. Thank you, John, so much. I'm so grateful for you. You are wonderful, and thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy the ride. It's a good one.
Thanks, guys.
Welcome to the Inner Blueprint Podcast. I'm Sean Foyer, the Universal Mindset Disruptor. With over 20 years of turning blueprints into thriving home improvement businesses, I've learned that the strongest foundations start in your mind. Whether you're building a business or your own success, we're here to reshape how you think and face daily life and always remind you to enjoy the ride.